What's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Sauce. So in this episode, it's all about the Central Division. I'm going to be breaking down my rankings 1 through 8. Without further ado, let's get saucing. So you already know who I have at number 1, the defending Stanley Cup champions, your Tampa Bay Lightning. So this roster is the same as last year's Stanley Cup roster, minus a few additions minus a few players that we traded to free up cap space like Cedric Paquette, Braden Coburn. We also lost Nikita Kucherov to injury for the season, but in that injury and those trades, we freed up cap space. We re-signed Anthony Cirelli, Mikhail Sergachev, Eric Chernak. So all in all, it's more or less the same team. Just there's a big hole in the offensive lineup with Nikita Kucherov out for the season, but 2020 defending Stanley Cup champs, and I think they're a solid roster. Big Cat in net. I think they'll take the number 1 spot. All right, and coming in at number 2, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. So 2 years ago, this team made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Final and was defeated by the Boston Bruins. Last year, they lost in the first round, also to the Boston Bruins. This team, though, minus the losses to Boston in the playoffs, is a very solid, well-rounded team from the top to the net. It's just a very solid team. James Reimer and Peter Mrazek in net are a good 1A, 1B tandem. They're not the best goalies in the league. However, when they get rolling, they're pretty solid goalies. And their defensive core is a lot of young guys, mostly young guys, who are very good offensive and defensively. So Carolina Hurricanes, I really don't see how they would drop out of the top 4 spot. So again, not much to say. Similar to Tampa Bay Lightning. Solid team for the past couple seasons. Not much change in their roster there. I think they'll be that number 2 spot. And at number 3, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. So 2 years ago, they swept the Lightning, and it pains me every time I say it. They swept the Lightning after the Lightning won the President's Trophy. And last year's playoffs, the Columbus Blue Jackets had a very tough-fought series against the Tampa Bay Lightning and pushed them in every single game. That opening game alone with 5 overtimes was the 4th longest game in NHL history. Playoff game in NHL history. Whatever. Long game. And their goalie, Jonas Korpisalo, who is their starter this year, set an NHL record for saves. It was 82 in a single game. Unbelievable. And Jonas Korpisalo with Elvis Merzlikins backing him up. Fantastic goalie tandem. John Tortorella coaches a very stout, tough, battle you in the boards, get in your face kind of style. In the offseason, they did trade injury-prone Josh Anderson, but they did get Max Domi back in return for Montreal. So I like that addition for them. And I think the Columbus Blue Jackets are going to be a very tough team to play against. And I don't see how they'll not make a top 4 spot in this division. All right, so I feel like I've gone a little fast here so far. So let's slow things down with the Dallas Stars. Last year's Western Conference champions and runner-up in the Stanley Cup Final. They were a phenomenal team. They were tough to play against. They have a solid defensive core, a lot of young guys in that lineup. They have Captain America and Joe Pavelski, who I think set a record in playoffs for scoring for American-born players. And then my concern with them offensively is Tyler Seguin is out for the year. And then my concern in goal is that Ben Bishop, who's supposed to be their starter, who was not in the playoffs last year, probably won't be throughout this whole season. Ben Bishop out of the net, but hey, Meme Worthy Anton Hudobin, solid goaltender, led them all the way to the Stanley Cup Final last year, still a net for them, so there's goodness there with the Dallas Stars. And not only that, they have a lot of youth in their lineup that made their presence known in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. Guys like Rope Hintz, Denis Goryanov, and Yoel Kiviranta, if you can say that name 3 times fast. So Dallas Stars, again, Stanley Cup Final last year. I don't see them not making the playoffs this year. We'll see how much COVID impacts them, but solid team all around. All right, and the team that I always love to root for, but they always tend to disappoint me when I root for them, I have them on the outside looking in, the Florida Panthers. So the Florida Panthers had a lot of low-budget, under-the-radar signings. Guys like Radko Gudas, Anthony Duclair, Connor Verhaeghe from the defending Stanley Cup champions. And these are all small dollar amount signings. Oh, they also made a good trade with Pittsburgh to get Patrick Hornquist, who adds some veteran leadership to the locker room and solid scoring. So that's a good move for them. All in all, the Panthers can always score a lot of goals. They're a fun team to watch. They're very quick. So their only concern was usually their defense, which I mentioned in the first video, I believe. So for Florida, they look to address that as the season goes on. If they're near a playoff spot, I could see them making a big move and acquiring a more solid defenseman, but as it stands right now, I have them on the outside looking in, but hopefully they can prove me wrong. Always like watching the Florida Panthers. And the last thing I want to say is goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky had a rough outing last year, so he needs to shape up, or that $11 million a year contract's going to look pretty rough for the Florida Panthers. We'll see how that goes. All right, so coming in at number 6, Nashville Predators. I love the Nashville Predators logo, as I mentioned before. I went to Nashville to see a Predators game, and that place is electric, but that has nothing to do with these rankings. I just like mentioning it. So Nashville hasn't really done a lot. In the offseason, they signed Eric Haula, who will bring some depth scoring, hopefully, to the Nashville Predators, and that's where their issue is. They haven't had consistent scoring the past couple seasons. They were eliminated by the Arizona Coyotes in last year's playoffs, and they really couldn't score a lot of goals throughout the season or in the playoffs. So, again, they just need to get that scoring going. Their defense is always solid. It doesn't matter who's in their lineup. That Nashville defense has been great for years, and I don't see that ever stopping with this team or with this franchise. That's just the way they're built. The other question mark I have for them is their goaltending. Pecorine getting another year older, kind of on the decline. UC Saros, their current backup, hasn't shown that he can take away the number 1 starting position yet. However, the big bright spot is that they signed the number 1 goalie in the draft, Askarov from Russia. And I think in a couple years, he's definitely going to be their starter. All right, so coming in at number 7, the Chicago Blackhawks. So they've officially announced that they're on the rebuild stage, and they're without their captain, Jonathan Toews, for I think the season. Brett Seabrook is likely retiring soon, and they do have, bright spot for Chicago, a lot of young guys that are just phenomenal, both offensively and defensively. My concern for this season for Chicago, and why I have them ranked so low, is they have Malcolm Subban and Dalia as their goaltending tandem. And I don't see that tandem or this lineup getting them further than on the outside looking in. They could contest for a higher spot just because they've been there, they've done that. They've won 3 Stanley Cups in, 6 years? I don't remember exactly what it was, but I mean, they're a solid team. I just don't see it happening this year for Chicago, but they are fun to watch. They're a sneaky good team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to fight their way to a higher spot, but I don't see them going any further than 5th or outside looking in with the announcement of the rebuild, losing Corey Crawford, losing Jonathan Toews. They still have Patrick Kane, but I feel like more moves are coming as the season progresses for Chicago. And in last place, the Detroit Red Wings. They're in a tough division. They really are, and they're still in that rebuild phase. They have a couple of high draft picks in the past couple years. They've added some veterans to kind of cushion the rookies and the young guys that they have. Really not a lot to boast about with this roster. This is what Yzerman tried to do in Tampa, was accelerate a rebuild, sell veterans, get draft picks, draft good players, and kind of work from there and promote from within. So the future looks bright for Detroit, but it's a long way from now. So again, they had that stint, was it 26 years in a row they made the playoffs, which was one of the longest playoff streaks of any franchise in any major league sport. But I just don't see it for Detroit this year. This should come as no surprise for my hockey fans out there, and for those who, like their logo, like to know about more about Detroit. They have a great historic franchise, and I mean, it's just not going to be that. It's not going to be them this year. So I have them ranked 8th in this one. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that's going to wrap up this one. I know we went through it kind of quick. There's not a lot of movement in the Central Division. Not a lot of teams did a lot of major changes. And for the most part, I feel like my rankings are fairly accurate. So we'll see towards the end of the season how well I'm doing. And, you know, again, if I get these right, great. If I get them wrong, hey, that's why we do these videos. So we'll see how good or how bad I did towards the end of the season with my predictions. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a very quick recap, but make sure you check out the other videos of the sauce as well as more videos from Slice to Life, and stay saucy.